Okay, I will call Rachel Taylor to move the motion, and I'll then call the Minister to respond. I'm not sure that we have a Minister at the moment.
Yes, no.
Sorry, Shadow Minister.
No Shadow Minister.
Okay, fine. I notice a little army of Labour backbenchers there. If they wish to speak, they should have sought the permission of the mover. Is that the case? Yeah, okay, great. I call Rachel Taylor to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I beg to move that this House has considered the matter of freight crime. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Sir Mark. As the Chair of the Freight and Logistics APPG, I had heard the concerns of haulage companies in the run-up to the budget. I was delighted to hear that the Government was also listening to the freight and logistics sector and decided not to raise fuel duty for another year. This was a necessary recognition of the importance of the freight industry to our economy, and I'd like to thank the Government for building the foundations of a good relationship with the freight and logistics sector that I hope will continue over this Parliament. When speaking to the Road Haulage Association, their members and other logistics workers, they were primarily concerned about fuel duty and freight crime. Now we have encouraged growth through the freeze on fuel duty, it's time to take freight crime seriously. For too long, freight crime has been seen as an opportunistic crime, carried out by individuals who fancy their luck stealing some stuff from the back of a lorry. This could not be further from the truth. The Home Office must understand that freight crime has become a serious and organised crime, often with violence and threats involved. Tackling freight crime is essential to achieving this Government's 5 missions. Road freight moves 89% of all goods and 98% of all agricultural and food products. In total, the road haulage industry contributes £13.5 billion to the economy, 5.6% of the UK's total GDP, and crucially, freight is an economic multiplier. Every £1 generated by the logistics industry generates £3 elsewhere in the economy. Yes, I will.
This forward to a very important issue in Northern Ireland. The National Crime Intelligence Service reported some 5,373 cases of freight and cargo crime, a 7% increase from the year before. So does the Honourable Lady agree with me? And some of those have involved, of course, drug smuggling as well in freight, and that's a big issue as well. But does the Honourable Lady agree with me that more efforts must be made regionally to address the potential of freight crime and drug smuggling to ensure that money and safety of our local paper is kept on the streets? Thank you.
I'd like to thank the honourable gentleman for his intervention, and I do agree that regionally and nationally we need more emphasis on this particular crime. If the Government is to achieve its mission to kickstart economic growth and take back our streets, it must treat freight crime with the seriousness that it deserves.
Will my honourable friend give way?
Yes.
Thank you very much to my honourable friend for giving way. My constituency of North West Cambridgeshire has around 12,000 employees in the wholesale and retail trade sector, many of whom will be affected by freight crime. Indeed, the recent report by the APPG for Freight and Logistics has named Peterborough as a key freight crime hotspot. Does my honourable friend agree that measures to tackle freight crime are long overdue and that it's essential for our plans to back British business?
I'd like to thank my honourable friend for his useful intervention, and I agree with him. I was proud recently to launch the report Securing Our Supply Chains with the APPG and the Road Haulage Association, and I'd like to raise its recommendations here today. The report highlights the clear damage that freight crime is doing to the UK economy. There were 5,370 reports of HGV and cargo crime in the UK in 2023. £68.3 million of goods stolen in 2023 due to freight crime, and it's likely that £1 billion has been lost since 2020 due to this serious crime. The report lays bare the stark issues affecting one of Britain's most vital industries, and an industry where 90% of businesses are small and medium-sized enterprises. The report also makes clear that the police do not feel adequately equipped to tackle freight crime. It is not opportunistic, it is serious, organised crime, and that's why freight criminals target service stations that have become freight crime hotspots. The National Vehicle Crime Intelligence Service, NAVSIS, have identified several service stations that are repeatedly targeted by freight criminals, including Cawley services on the M6 in my constituency. In 2023 alone, Cawley services experienced 76 offences of freight crime. Other key crime hotspots include Stafford, which had 138 offences, Thurrock, which had 103 offences, and Warwick services, which experienced 87 offences. It's clear to me, as it should be to everyone in this room, that this means criminals have organised effectively to target certain service stations repeatedly. Will the Minister commit to working with the Department for Transport to improve service station security for freight drivers? And will he agree? Yes, I will.
I thank my honourable friend. 6,000 of my constituents work in transportation and storage, and so I know how important this is as an issue to them. Much of the allocated overnight lorry parking is insecure, it's open to the public, it lacks CCTV, and as a result, 75% of freight crime offences happen in independent road parking or unsecured motorway service areas, and there can even be knock-on effects to the wider community. So does my honourable friend agree that there must be greater standards enforced to make sure that drivers can access safe and secure parking facilities?
I'd like to thank my honourable friend, the member for Rugby, for his intervention, and it's why I'd like to reiterate my invitation to the Minister to visit Cawley services in my constituency so that he can hear for himself just how freight drivers feel firsthand and the security issues that they're facing. Often, freight crime takes place where criminals slash a lorry's curtains to gain access to its goods or commit fuel theft by siphoning fuels from tanks while drivers are parked. Now, cyber criminals are cloning the websites of legitimate hauliers and tricking sellers into letting them drive away with valuables. Yet, in law, freight thefts are treated with the same seriousness as someone smashing a window and stealing a phone from the passenger seat of a car. This must change. We need a coordinated policing and enforcement strategy. I've highlighted the impact of freight crime for the economy, but it's crucial we understand what freight crime does to an industry that's mainly made up of SMEs. To understand that impact, it's crucial to hear from members of this industry, which I have done. Dave Hands is the Managing Director of LTS Global Solutions, who introduced me to this industry when I was standing for election. Since March this year, his company alone has experienced 6 fuel theft incidents. Each theft impacts his operations and customers significantly. LTS loses a day of deliveries, must replace the stolen fuel and pay a call-out fee to repair the vehicle and supply fuel to get them to the nearest garage. Dave has said that in a sector that operated on a 2 to 4% net profit margin, these incidents not only cause us to lose money, but also put our customer relations at risk. Rhys Hackling is a managing director from Direct Connect Logistics. In January 22, he had a truck attacked by thieves who stole pallets of batteries. The company lost all revenue from the truck for 3 days whilst the inquiry went on and it was repaired. Even worse, Rhys has said that Direct Connect Logistics have lost drivers due to the damage caused to their mental well-being, as having the curtain cut on a lorry is a direct attack on them. The RHA have detailed to me how curtain slashing can take place when a vehicle is even in transit. The freight criminals will pull up behind or to the side of the cab, slash its curtains, steal goods and put all drivers on the road in danger. Rhys has said that many of his drivers remain committed, but that they do not sleep properly at night due to the threat of being targeted. Holly Middleton is a transport manager from WOW Logistics and Warehousing, one of the country's handful of female-run logistics companies.
Will my honourable member give way?
Yes, I will.
And thank you. And on that note, we've got at least 8,000 constituents in Portsmouth North who work in freight and logistics. And it's been highlighted to me that freight crime has really discouraged female drivers from entering and remaining in the industry. Within the International Transport Workers Federation found lack of secure parking facilities as a contributing factor to the lack of diversity in this sector. And do you agree with me that, like my honourable gentleman beside me, we should be looking at secure places for people to rest in between their shifts?
Hear, hear.
I'd like to thank my honourable friend for raising this important point, which I come to later on. Holly, who I was talking about, echoed Reese's sentiments and has said that she feels disheartened when you work hard but can't sleep in case something happens. In one particularly shocking incident, 2 men were scouting Holly's building and then attempted to steal some boxes. When she told them to get off the estate, they threatened her and told her they would beat her up. For an industry that struggles with encouraging women to become drivers, I'm sure the Minister will agree that freight crime poses a particular issue to female-led businesses like WOW. And does he also recognise that the sector is struggling with retention, which is preventing economic growth because of freight crime? I'd like to highlight 2 areas of the report that I believe this House deserves a response to. The first is that we must increase support and resources for law enforcement. The second is that we must launch a national freight crime awareness campaign, especially as freight crime is about to hit its busiest season. This report has made clear that police do not have the resources to properly tackle freight crime. Police services, drivers, the RHA and the National Vehicle Crime Intelligence all recognise there is not currently a national strategy to deal with freight crime or the resources and training for the police to tackle the crime properly. Police officers have made it clear that they would like to invest in stopping crime and catching criminals. And I know that taking back our streets is one of the government's 5 missions. Sadly, the freight workers I have spoken to say that it feels futile to report incidents because they know there's not much the police can do. If this government is to take back our streets, it must ensure that crimes committed on our roads, in lay-bys and at service stations are prosecuted. Does the Minister agree with me that preventative infrastructural measures are a key element in reducing freight crime? There's a national shortage of safe lorry parking, which forces many drivers to park overnight at unlit, unpopulated and vulnerable roadside lay-bys. Will he commit to rectifying that by reforming the National Planning Policy Framework to consider the needs of hauliers? And will the Minister recognise that there must be a deterrent for criminals to engage in freight crime and to reassure those disheartened freight workers that they should report freight crimes? This crime cannot be reduced without an improvement in enforcement. The crucial issue now is that the police lack a national strategy to deal with it. These are organised criminal gangs operating out of West Yorkshire and Coventry, whose operation spans several counties, and yet the police lack a strategy to combat this. Furthermore, NAVSIS are under-supported and underfunded. They have a clear mission to bring industry and policing together to disrupt criminals and reduce crime. But they don't receive any funds from central government or the police service for any of its areas of business. Instead, the National Freight Crime Desk is supported by 4 sponsors from the freight industry and 62 members who pay an annual subscription for freight crime data. NAVSIS currently has 1 full-time service police officer on secondment, a part-time analyst and a part-time data inputter. This places NAVSIS in a financially precarious position and does not facilitate cooperation between NAVSIS and UK policing. This is clearly not enough to tackle organised crime on a national scale. Developing a cross-county and national strategy is vital. There must be greater sharing of information between NAVSIS businesses and police forces. NAVSIS has identified that 38 criminal hotspots and the main arterial roads close to the biggest ports see the vast majority of freight crime. A well-executed, targeted approach in these locations could result in a massive reduction in crime for relatively little police resource. Can the Minister commit to providing more resources to tackle crime in these hotspots? Holly told me that this time of the year is the worst because Christmas deliveries are at an all-time high. It's outrageous that our drivers who deliver Christmas to families across the UK cannot do so without feeling physically at risk. Thousands of instances of freight crime each year endanger the mental health of the workforce in the road freight industry, but the freight crime epidemic is not known about in the public consciousness. We need greater public awareness, especially to ward people off buying stolen goods through social media pages and websites around Christmas. It's crucial to create a hostile environment to criminals to keep our drivers safe. It's timely to have this debate on the 3rd of December, as many drivers are getting ready for the Christmas period. This House should be under no illusion that it is lorry drivers, not Father Christmas, that will be delivering Christmas this year. And so I would like to end this debate by reiterating freight crime is serious, it is organised, it is threatening our drivers' well-being and putting hard-working businesses at risk of closure. We must have a serious response from government. I beg to move.
The question is that this House has considered the matter of freight crime. I call the Minister Dan Jarvis.
Thank you. Let me say it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, Sir Mark, and let me start by congratulating the Honourable Member for North Warwickshire and Bedford on securing this debate on freight crime. As I think came through very clearly in her remarks, she has a huge interest in and knowledge of these important matters. And this debate, as she has just said a moment ago, is very timely, not least that it comes hot on the heels of the publication of a comprehensive and insightful report on this subject from the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Freight and Logistics, a group which she chairs. So I want to take the opportunity to thank her for her work with the All-Party Parliamentary Group. And I'm also very grateful to all other members who've participated in this debate. I should say that, as she will know, matters relating to freight crime sit within the ministerial responsibility of the Policing Minister, not me as the Security Minister. And I know that the Policing Minister is very sorry that she's not able to be here today. But I've listened very carefully to the excellent contribution that she has made, and I will respond or endeavour to respond to all of the points that she's made on behalf of the Policing Minister today. And if there's anything that I miss, I will endeavour to ensure that the Department writes to her on those matters. At the outset, though, I want to emphasise how damaging and distressing freight crime can be, and I think the Honourable Lady made this point very clearly, and to acknowledge the hugely detrimental effect it has on both businesses and on individuals. Everyone should be concerned that freight crime has risen over the past few years, and the government will work, and she asked me for an assurance on this, the government will work with partners, including, of course, the police, to mount the most effective possible response. We are pursuing, as she knows, a wide-ranging mission to tackle crime and to make our streets safer. A big part of that is restoring visible neighbourhood policing, which is essential to deterring crime, reassuring residents and businesses, and maintaining public confidence. Through our neighbourhood policing guarantee, we will deliver thousands of neighbourhood police, community support officers and special constables. And on freight and related vehicle crime specifically, we are working very closely with the police, the automotive industry and the National Vehicle Crime Intelligence Service, NAVSIS. We have provided policing with additional funding this financial year to help tackle the export of stolen vehicles, supporting enforcement at the ports to prevent stolen vehicles and vehicle parts being shipped abroad, including through the deployment of additional staff and specialist equipment to the ports. We will also bring forward legislation to ban electronic devices that have been used to steal devices, empowering the police and the courts to target the criminals using, manufacturing and supplying them. Now, recently, the Policing Minister had the opportunity to meet with the National Police Chiefs Council Lead for Vehicle Crime, Assistant Chief Constable Jenny Sims, to discuss these issues and how we can work more effectively together. Led by ACC Sims, the National Vehicle Crime Working Group is raising awareness of crime against road haulage companies within the National Police Vehicle Crime Response. And we are looking forward to working closely with the Road Haulage Association as part of this group. In support of the working group, a network of vehicle crime specialists has been established, involving every police force in England and Wales. And it will help to share information about emerging trends in vehicle crime so that we can better seek to tackle regional issues. And as a key member of the working group, the government is continuing to work with NAVSIS, the specialist unit funded by industry, to provide dedicated specialist intelligence and enforcement. As part of its remit, NAVSIS is working with the government, and we're together taking forward a project to analyse heavy goods vehicle-related crime in England, with a specific focus on identifying crime patterns at HGV parking sites. This government is determined that all lorry drivers should have access to high-quality, safe and secure facilities right across the country. And that is why we have invested in improved lorry parks and safer rest areas. Now, the Honourable Member specifically mentioned this and extended an invitation to visit the services in her constituency, and I can give her an absolute assurance that I will extend that invitation on her behalf to the Policing Minister. I also think that she made a number of other points, which I'll come on to in just a moment. But before I do, I want to confirm to her that an industry-led task and finish group on HGV facilities will complete its work in January. It is focusing on increasing capacity for safe and secure parking and driving industry adoption of existing HGV parking standards. We will consider the findings closely, and we will do so mindful of the comments that she's made today about Holly, who the Honourable Member referenced, as well as the important points that she also made around retention within the industry, as well as the points that she rightly made around public awareness. I also wanted to inform the Honourable Member and the House that with industry, the Government and National Highways are also investing in improved welfare facilities, security upgrades and more HGV parking spaces at lorry parks and truck stops right across England. And the Honourable Member rightly mentioned the importance of infrastructure. So I can tell her that the government is also prioritising improvements to the planning system, which she mentioned. New language on freight and logistics in the recent consultation on the National Planning Policy Framework recognises the importance of considering freight in planning. And I thank the sector for taking the time to respond to the consultation. I also want to acknowledge the worrying involvement of serious and organised criminals in committing freight crime. This is something that the Honourable Lady also referenced, and she's right to do so, because these individuals are corroding our country's global reputation and costing us billions of pounds each year. As announced by the Prime Minister in his recent speech to the Interpol General Assembly in Glasgow, we are investing a further £58 million in the National Crime Agency, and this will make a real difference, including through the strengthening of data analysis and intelligence capabilities. But I will take away the member's important point that she made about the need for a national strategy. I can also tell her that we will work with policing on a new national centre of policing to bring together crucial support services that local police forces can draw upon to raise standards, improve efficiency and productivity. The Honourable Member made a couple of other points that I do want to respond to. Firstly, let me also say I'm very grateful to her for the acknowledgement that she made about the measures in the budget to freeze the fuel duty allowance, and also to acknowledge the important point that she made about the huge contribution that freight makes to the UK economy. She's right to do so. It accounts for 5% of the GVA to the UK non-financial business economy, and the government completely recognises the significant importance of the sector. In closing, Mr Chair, I would like to reiterate my thanks to the Honourable Member for securing this debate and to all those who've contributed to it. We have covered a number of specific issues, and I know that my right honourable friend, the Policing Minister, will reflect on them in our ongoing work with partners, including policing, and working closely with colleagues in the Department for Transport. As I said at the beginning of my remarks, freight crime is a serious threat and must be dealt with as such. This government is committed to tackling criminality of any kind, which is why we have made it our mission to deliver safer streets for all and restore neighbourhood policing. Reducing freight crime is integral to that mission. Thank you.
The question is that this House has considered the matter of freight crime. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it, the ayes have it. Order, order. Can I just say, the gentleman at the back on the left in the gallery, you're not allowed to take photos. So I'd suggest you delete it. Right, can those wishing to take part in the next debate please take your places?